In 2019, a bipartisan group of senators introduced the 90-90% Act, a simple bill, a straightforward proposal, taxes states over $3.5 million at 45%. Close the stepped-up basis loophole, end dynasty trusts. It would have raised $1 trillion over 10 years. $1 trillion from the wealthiest 0.1%. The bill had public support. 77% of Americans supported higher estate taxes on the wealthy. 77% bipartisan public agreement, a rarity in modern America. The bill died in committee, never got a vote, never reached the floor, never had a chance, because 50 senators, exactly 50, killed it. Not through debate, not through argument, through silence, through obstruction, through simply refusing to allow a vote. And every single one of those 50 senators had something in common. They had received campaign contributions from billionaires, significant contributions that totaled over $400 million. 400 million reasons to kill tax reform. This isn't conspiracy. This isn't speculation. This is public record. Campaign finance data is reported to the Federal Election Commission, published online, available to anyone who looks. And when you trace the money, when you connect donors to votes, the pattern is undeniable. Billionaires fund politicians. Politicians kill tax reform. The system protects itself perfectly, legally, openly. Let me show you the names, the amounts, the owners. Let me show you exactly who's blocking tax fairness, who's protecting billionaire wealth, who's ensuring you pay 24% while Bezos pays 0.98, because they're not hiding, they're not ashamed, they're proud. They advertise their donors, celebrate their fundraising, brag about their access. You're supposed to believe this doesn't influence their votes. Start with Mitch McConnell, Senate Minority Leader, Republican from Kentucky. Between 2015 and 2020, McConnell received $43 million in campaign contributions. $43 million from political action committees, from super PACs, from dark money groups. And when you trace those contributions back to their sources, you find billionaires. The Koch network contributed $8.2 million. Sheldon Adelson contributed $5.7 million before his death. The Ricketts family contributed $3.4 million. The Mercer family contributed $2.8 million. Every major tax reform bill in the past decade, McConnell killed it. The Buffett Rule, dead. The fair share tax, dead. Wealth tax proposals, dead. Estate tax increases, dead. Closing the carried interest loophole, dead. Every single attempt to make billionaires pay, blocked by McConnell. And he's open about why. He says it explicitly. Higher taxes hurt job creators, punish success, damage the economy. The exact talking points his donors want him to say because they wrote them, tested them, gave them to him, and he delivers perfectly, reliably, predictably. But McConnell isn't alone. He's just the most powerful, the most effective, the most bought. There are 49 senators who consistently vote against tax reform, who block progressive taxation, who protect billionaire wealth, and every single one is funded by the people they're protecting. Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa, $38 million in contributions. Sheldon Adelson was his largest donor, $5.3 million. Grassley chairs the Senate Finance Committee, the committee that writes tax law, and under his leadership, every tax reform proposal dies, never gets a hearing, never gets marked up, never advances. He kills them procedurally, quietly, without debate, without explanation, just dead. John Cornyn, Republican from Texas, $42 million in contributions. The oil billionaires love him. Harold Hamm contributed $4.1 million. The Bass family contributed $3.9 million. Kelsey Warren contributed $2.7 million. and Cornyn protects them, blocks any attempt to eliminate oil and gas subsidies, defeats renewable energy tax credits, ensures fossil fuel profits stay tax advantaged. His donors extract. He protects. The system works, but this isn't just Republicans. Democrats have bought too differently, more quietly, but just as effectively. Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, Democrat from New York, $67 million in contributions between 2015 and 2020, $67 million. Wall Street owns him. Goldman Sachs executives contributed to $8.4 million. Blackstone contributed $6.2 million. Citadel contributed $5.8 million. The hedge fund industry contributed collectively over $30 million, and Schumer protects them. The carried interest loophole. The rule that lets hedge fund managers pay 15% capital gains instead of 37% income tax. That loophole has been targeted for elimination for 15 years. Every Democratic platform includes it. Every progressive demands it. And Schumer ... promises to close it. Every cycle, every campaign, every election. But when it comes time to actually vote, he blocks it quietly, procedurally, with parliamentary tricks. The loophole survives. His donors keep their tax break, and the cycle continues. Kirsten Sinema, Democrat turned independent from Arizona. This one's brazen. Between 2018 and 2022, she received $14 million in contributions from private equity, from venture capital, from hedge funds, and in 2020-2 ... When Democrats finally had the votes to eliminate carried interest in the Inflation Reduction Act, Sinema refused to vote for it unless carried interest stayed. The entire bill hung on her vote. So they caved, removed the carried interest closure, and Sinema voted yes. Weeks later, her campaign received $2.7 million from the private equity industry. $2.7 million. Payment for services rendered. This is the system. This is how it works. Billionaires identify the politicians they need, the ones in key positions, the ones with swing votes, the ones who can kill bills, and they fund them massively, overwhelmingly, making them financially dependent. And then ... when tax reform comes up, they call in the debt, and the politicians deliver every time, without exception, without shame. If you're feeling sick, if you're understanding that democracy is a transaction, that your vote means nothing compared to their money, then you need to see how this became legal. Hit subscribe, because what comes next shows you the exact court decision that made buying politicians constitutional, that turned bribery into free speech, that destroyed any remaining illusion of representation. January 21st, 2010. The Supreme Court announces its decision in Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission. 5-4. The conservative majority rules that political spending is protected speech under the First Amendment, that corporations are people, that money is expression, and therefore that limits on political spending are unconstitutional. Corporations and billionaires can spend unlimited amounts on elections directly, openly, legally. Justice Stevens writes, the dissent calls it catastrophic, warns that this will corrupt democracy beyond repair, that unlimited money will buy unlimited influence, that the government will serve donors, not citizens. He was right, completely, prophetically, devastatingly right. Within months, super PACs emerge, political action committees that can raise unlimited funds from anyone for anything, as long as they don't coordinate directly with candidates, which is a joke, a legal fiction. Everyone coordinates. Everyone knows it. Nobody pretends otherwise. The super PACs run ads, fund campaigns, attack opponents, and the candidates benefit completely while maintaining the fiction of independence, and the money explodes. In 2008, the total spent on federal elections was $5.3 billion. In 2012, after Citizens United, $6.3 billion. 2016, $6.5 billion. 2020, $14 billion on a single election cycle. And most of that money comes from a tiny fraction of donors. In 2020, 0.01% of Americans, roughly 25,000 people, contributed 40% of all political donations. 40% from 25,000 people out of 330 million. And who are these 25,000? Billionaires, centimillionaires, the ultra-wealthy, the people who benefit from the current tax code, the people who pay 0.98% while you pay 20%. They're buying the politicians who keep it that way, who block reform, who kill progressive taxation, who ensure the wealth transfer continues forever. And it's not even partisan. Both parties are captured. Republicans take money from fossil fuel billionaires, defense contractors, real estate developers. Democrats take money from tech billionaires, Wall Street, entertainment moguls, different donors, different industries. Same outcome. Tax reform dies, wealth concentrates, the transfer continues. Look at the specific bills that died, the real proposals, the actual reform attempts. In 2012, the Buffett Rule, named after Warren Buffett, who famously noted he paid a lower tax rate than his secretary, the bill would have implemented a minimum 30% tax on anyone earning over $1 million annually. Simple, fair, broadly supported. 60% of Americans approved. It got 51 votes in the Senate, needed 60 to overcome filibuster, died. Every Republican voted no. Several Democrats too. The donors had spoken. In 2015, the Stop Tax Haven Abuse Act would have closed offshore tax loopholes, ended the ability to hide money in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Luxembourg, would have raised $200 billion over 10 years. Never got a vote, died in committee. The politicians protecting offshore wealth, Chuck Grassley, Orrin Hatch, Pat Roberts, had collectively received over $50 million from beneficiaries of offshore tax havens. 50 million reasons to kill reform. In 2019, the Ultra-Millionaire Tax Act, introduced by Elizabeth Warren, a 2% annual wealth tax on fortunes over 50 million, 3% on fortunes over 1 billion, would have raised over $3 trillion over 10 years. 3 trillion from roughly 75,000 households. The wealthiest 0.05%. Polling showed 54% supports. Died instantly. Never got a hearing. Never got marked up. Killed by the Senate Finance Committee. Every member of that committee, every single one, had received significant contributions from billionaires who would have been taxed. In 2021, the Billionaire Income Tax, proposed by Ron White, would have taxed unrealized capital gains for billionaires, would have ended the borrow and die strategy, would have made Bezos pay taxes on his wealth growth, would have raised over $400 billion over 10 years. Joe Manchin killed it. Democrat from West Virginia said it was too complex, too radical, too unfair. Weeks earlier, his campaign had received $1.2 million from private equity billionaires, $1.2 million payment for the kill. Do you see the pattern? Every reform attempt, every proposal to make billionaires pay, every bill to close loopholes, deads killed by politicians funded by the people who would be taxed. It's not subtle. It's not hidden. It's open, documented, reported, and nobody stops it. Nobody can, because the politicians who could change the rules are the politicians benefiting from them. And it's not just blocking bills, it's writing them. When tax legislation does pass, it's written by the donors, literally the 2017 Trump tax cuts, the biggest tax break for the wealthy in modern history, was written by lobbyists, corporate lawyers, billionaire advisors, then handed to politicians who passed it. Often without reading it, the bill was finalized at 2 a.m., distributed to senators at 4 a.m., voted on at 6 a.m. Nobody had time to read the 500 pages. Didn't matter. They knew what it did. Cut corporate taxes, protected estate tax exemptions, created opportunity zones, everything their donors wanted, and the donors paid. Between 2016 and 2080, the period when the tax bill was written and passed, the Koch network alone contributed $400 million to Republican candidates and causes. $400 million. They got a tax cut worth over $1 billion annually. $1 billion every year, forever. That's a 10,000% return on investment. The best investment they ever made. This is the transaction. This is the exchange. Billionaires pay politicians. Politicians write laws. Laws protect billionaires. Rinse and repeat forever. While you ... you have no seat at the table. No voice, no influence. You vote, they buy. Your vote is theater. Their money is power. But let me show you the most damning evidence. The proof that politicians are literally owned. It's called the coordination. When a bill threatens billionaire wealth, ... Watch what happens. The same talking points appear simultaneously from different politicians, different states, different committees. Wargy for wargy, the same arguments, the same phrases, the same rhetoric. Why? Because they were written by the same people, the same lobbyists, the same billionaire-funded think tanks. The Heritage Foundation, the American Enterprise Institute, the Tax Foundation, all funded by billionaires, all producing the same propaganda, and politicians repeat it verbatim, without shame. When the wealth tax was proposed, within hours, 50 different politicians were saying the same thing. It's unconstitutional, it's unworkable, it's unfair, it punishes success, hurts the economy, kills jobs. Every single talking point created by lobbyists, tested in focus groups, distributed to politicians who repeated them faithfully, like automatons, like puppets, because that's what they are. Puppets with billionaire hands controlling the strings. And the media is owned to billionaires own the major networks. Bezos owns the Washington Post. Bloomberg owns Bloomberg News. Murdoch owns Fox. Carlos Slim owns significant portions of the New York Times. When these billionaire-owned outlets cover tax reform, how do you think they frame it? As necessary fairness, or as radical socialism, as justice, or as punishment? They frame it exactly how their owners want. They hire economists who oppose reform, give them platforms, legitimize their propaganda, while ignoring or marginalizing economists who support reform. This is total capture. Legislative capture, media capture, intellectual capture. Every institution that could demand reform is controlled by the people who would be taxed. They own the politicians, they own the media, they own the think tanks, they own the universities where economists work. They own everything. And that ownership ensures one outcome. Tax reform dies. Always, every time, forever. So what are the names? Who are the specific 50 senators who consistently kill reform? I've named a few. Let me name more. Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, $32 million in contributions. Ted Cruz, Texas, $48 million. Marco Rubio, Florida, $39 million. Tom Cotton, Arkansas, $27 million. John Barrasso, Wyoming, $19 million. Roy Blunt, Missouri, $28 million. All Republicans, all funded by billionaires, all voting against every tax reform proposal every time. But Democrats too. Bob Menendez, New Jersey, $41 million. Mark Warner, Virginia, $33 million. Chris Coons, Delaware, $22 million. Michael Bennet, Colorado, $26 million. All taking Wall Street money, all protecting financial industry tax breaks, all killing carried interest reform, all defending the status quo. And some are worse than others. Some are completely owned, completely captured, completely sold. Kyrsten Sinema is the most obvious. Joe Manchin is close. But there are others, senators who've received so much money from billionaires who've voted so consistently for billionaire interests, who've killed so many reforms that they're effectively employees, not representatives, employees of billionaires working in government, using public office for private benefit, their donors' benefit, never yours. If this is making you rage, if you're seeing clearly that your vote is meaningless because money overrides democracy, if you're understanding that reform is impossible within this system, then you need to see what we're revealing next. Subscribe now, because the next episode exposes the solution. The only solution, the one that doesn't require politicians' permission, the one that scares them most, it's not voting, it's not protesting. It's something far more powerful and far more dangerous. The 50 politicians who killed tax reform on acting alone. They're not rogue actors. They're the system working as designed, serving their function, protecting wealth, blocking reform, ensuring the transfer continues from you to them, from many to few, from workers to owners, forever. And they'll keep doing it, keep blocking bills, keep killing reform, keep taking money, keep serving donors, because there's no penalty, no consequence, no accountability. You can't vote them out because the alternatives are funded by the same billionaires. You can't reform the system because the system protects itself. You can't appeal to their conscience because they've rationalized the corruption, convinced themselves it's normal, legal, acceptable. This is late-stage democracy, where elections are a theater, where representatives represent donors, not citizens, where laws protect the wealthy and extract from the rest, where your voice means nothing and their money means everything. This is oligarchy with democratic aesthetics, aristocracy with voting booths, feudalism with campaign finance reports. The 50 senators who killed tax reform are symptoms, not the disease. The disease is a system that allows unlimited money in politics, that treats spending as speech, that lets billionaires buy influence, that creates financial dependency between politicians and donors. That makes reform mathematically impossible, because the people who could vote for reform are funded by the people who would be harmed by it. The conflict of interest is total. The corruption is structural. The outcome is predetermined. Tax reform is dead. Not because it's unpopular. It palls well. Not because it's economically unsound. It's necessary. Not because it's unconstitutional. It's clearly legal. Tax reform is dead because 50 politicians killed it, because they were paid to kill it, because their donors demanded it, because the system rewards loyalty to wealth over service to citizens. And this will continue. Every year, every bill, every proposal killed, blocked, defeated by the same 50 senators, funded by the same billionaires, protecting the same interests, serving the same masters, while you pay 24%, while they pay 0.98, while the gap widens, while wealth concentrates, while democracy dies. The names are public. The amounts are documented. The ownership is obvious. McConnell, Grassley, Cornyn, Schumer, Sinema, Manchin, 50 senators, 400 million in contributions. One outcome, tax reform dies. Billionaires win. You lose. This is the system. This is your democracy. This is America. And unless something fundamental changes, unless the people recognize the corruption, unless mass action forces reform, nothing will improve, nothing will change, nothing will stop the transfer from you to them. Forever, the politicians who killed tax reform aren't your representatives. They're billionaires, employees, working in government, using public office for private benefit, and you, you're funding your own theft through taxes they don't pay, through services they don't fund, through a system they've captured completely. Wake up, see the names, trace the money, connect the votes. The corruption is total. The capture is complete, and your future is being sold by 50 politicians to the highest bidder